You know, there are some memories that don't fade with time. They only get sharper, more contrast, like someone cranked up the sharpness to maximum. I was 8 years old the last time I saw my grandfather alive, and I'm 28 now, when I finally understood what exactly he was hiding from us all these years. I grew up in an old house in New England. You know these places? Endless gray winters, creaking floorboards, and the feeling that the walls are watching you. My grandfather built that house himself back in the 50s. He was a structural engineer, a man of precise calculations and reinforced concrete. But there was one anomaly in the house, one architectural mistake he never fixed. The basement door sounds cliché, right? An old creaky basement. But it's not about the creaking. The door to our basement was made of solid oak, lined with steel strips and locked with a bolt. Not a lock, mind you, a bolt, on our side, as if we were locking someone inside. When I was a kid, I used to ask my mother, why don't we ever go into the basement? We had the laundry room in the annex, and all the old stuff was stored in the attic. Mom always gave me the same answer. It's just dirty down there, honey. Grandpa doesn't allow it. I grew up, moved to Chicago, and almost forgot about it. Until a month ago when the realtor called me. Mom had moved into a nursing home. The house needed to be sold. Josh, the realtor said, you need to come down here. There's something strange about the floor plan. I arrived on a Saturday morning. The house greeted me with the smell of dust and lavender, my mother's favorite sachets. I walked through the rooms and nostalgia washed over me until my eyes landed on that exact same door in the kitchen. The bolt was spotless, not a speck of dust. In 20 years, my mother had never once opened it. The realtor, a guy named Mark, shoved a set of yellowed blueprints into my hands. Look at the square footage of the first floor, he said, tapping his finger nervously on the paper. Now look at the foundation. I didn't understand what he was getting at. And then I saw it. The footprint. On paper, the outer perimeter of the house was a perfect rectangle, but inside, according to the foundation plan, the basement was roughly 12 feet shorter than it was supposed to be. There's a void down there, Mark whispered. There's no room on the blueprint, but it's there on the property. I wanted to call in technicians with ground-penetrating radar, but I figured I'd call you first. I remember looking at that door. Just a regular door. But for the first time in my life, I didn't feel a childish fear of it. I felt an engineer's curiosity. I walked over to the workbench, grabbed a crowbar, and told Mark, we won't need the radar. He tried to talk me out of it, mumbled something about a cave-in, about groundwater, but I wasn't listening anymore. I could smell it. From under the door, a dry, cold air was seeping out. The kind of smell you get in old elevator shafts or deep caves, the smell of something ancient. I slid the bolt back. The metal clanged so loudly that Mark physically jumped. The door opened with a heavy, viscous groan. Behind it was darkness, thick, almost tangible darkness. I shined my phone's flashlight down. A staircase made of concrete blocks descending vertically downward. 20 steps, not 10, like a regular basement, all 20. That's deeper than the calculated frost line for our state. I started going down. With every step, the air grew colder. The sound of my footsteps changed. The clicking of my soles on concrete was sharp at first, and then it became muffled, as if the space around me had suddenly expanded. I reached the bottom and realized I was standing on a dirt floor. My flashlight didn't reveal a storage room or heating pipes. I saw a table, a massive oak table buried in notebooks, and a chair, just one chair. But that wasn't the scariest part. I shined the light on the walls, and I nearly threw up from the panic rising in my throat. The walls weren't just dirt, they were carved up, thousands of lines, a chaotic pattern of intersecting scratches. Someone had been digging tunnels down here, like a mole, and then filling them back in with soil. In one spot, wooden boards covered a hole that led somewhere horizontally, beneath the house's foundation. In the center of the room, under a bare light bulb socket, there was a tape recorder. You know the type, those old Sony ones with mini cassettes. And a note, taped to the casing with yellowed Scotch tape. Josh, listen first. Don't touch anything. It was my grandfather's handwriting. I recognized it immediately. Those sharp, blocky engineer's letters. With trembling hands, I pressed play. At first there was only static, and then a voice came through. The voice of a man who was very old, very scared, but still trying to speak clearly. Joshua, if you're listening to this, it means I'm gone, and you, as I always hoped, turned out too curious to quit. I knew you would come down. No one else ever dared. Forgive me for what you are about to hear. And for God's sake, whatever happens next, keep the light on. I spun around and yelled up to Mark, telling him to keep that door open no matter what. My voice didn't echo. It just dropped into the dirt, like a stone into cotton. I pressed play again. My grandfather told his story. When he was pouring the foundation in 1952, the excavator hit a void, not a cave, no. It was a perfectly circular shaft plunging downward at an angle, something that would later be called a rabbit hole. But in the 50s, they didn't have those terms. The foreman refused to work. The superstitious Irishman said it was a hole to hell. My grandfather, a man of science and an atheist, simply poured concrete over it. But the concrete never set. The next morning, he came to the site and found the concrete slab cracked right down the middle, and sticking out of the crack was, as he put it, a fragment of organic structure, defying all classification. He showed photographs to biologists in Boston, but they just shrugged their shoulders. So he built a false floor and hid the place. He went on, I thought it was dead, that it was just a fossil. I was wrong. It's alive, Joshua. It sleeps. It wakes up once every 20 years when the tectonic plates shift. And when it wakes, it dreams. And these dreams, they seep upward. That's when my eyes landed on the walls. I realized they weren't just scratches. They were text and drawings. I moved closer and shined my flashlight on them. They were dreams, thousands of descriptions of the exact same place. It shows me a black sun hanging over a labyrinth of bones. Today I was there for 3 minutes. Time moves 100 times faster there. I heard its thoughts. It's not evil. It's just lonely. It needs us to come down. The last page in the notebook on the table was dated the day of my grandfather's death. There was just one sentence, written by an even shakier hand, practically pressed into the paper. The light doesn't help anymore. I can see it even with my eyes open. And that's when something happened that froze the blood in my veins. The tape in the recorder was still spinning, but my grandfather's voice was gone. There was silence. And then I heard whispers. Low, layered voices, overlapping like radio interference. And they weren't coming from the recorder's speaker. They were coming from that hole covered by boards in the wall. The whispers were calling my name, but not Josh, not Joshua. They were calling me by the name I had in childhood, a name only my dead grandmother ever used. At that exact moment, Mark's blood-curdling scream came from the top of the stairs. Josh, run! Your shadow! I instinctively looked down at the dirt floor, lit by the beam of my phone's flashlight. My shadow was lying at my feet. A normal shadow, but it was moving. It wasn't copying my movements. The shadow hand, long and unnaturally twisted, was slowly crawling toward the exit door. My shadow was trying to leave my body. Survival instinct kicked in faster than reason. I don't remember how I flew up those 20 steps. I knocked Mark out of the way, slammed the door shut, and drove the bolt home. We sat on the kitchen floor, soaked in cold sweat, and from behind that door, not a sound. Absolute ringing silence. I didn't sell the house. I sealed the doorway with concrete. 3 feet of reinforced concrete with tungsten mesh. Mark thinks I'm paranoid. He doesn't know the whole truth. And the truth is, as I was running away from the basement, I had time to notice something. In the last flicker of my flashlight, I saw a page in the notebook that wasn't written in my grandfather's hand. It was scribbled at the very bottom of the page in a messy, childish script. A script I recognized instantly. It was my own handwriting, a cursive sample from 2nd grade. And it said, Grandpa said if I come in a dream, he will show me the black sun. I went. I don't remember that dream. I don't remember ever going down into that basement before today. But somewhere down there, at a depth of 20 feet beneath the ground, in the endless labyrinths of someone else's consciousness, my 8-year-old shadow is still wandering. And sometimes, when I wake up at 3 in the morning in my Chicago apartment, I hear fingernails scratching against the concrete screed under my bed. And I'm afraid that one day, when I dream about my grandfather, I'll walk down those stairs again, and there won't be a bolt on this side anymore. Check your basements, and if you ever wake up at 3 a.m. and can't move, write it down in the comments. I need to know how many of us there are. Sweet dreams.